Hey everyone, welcome back to the Track Limits podcast presented by Formula Addict. I'm your host Swish with my co-host Henny.
Hello.
How you feeling, Henny?
I'm feeling really great. We have a good guest. I'm excited to hear his opinions.
Oh yeah, somebody who you actually saw at the Red Bull car launch.
I don't know. There was so many people there. Might have crossed paths, but we didn't know.
This is an individual you have definitely heard of if you're a motorsport fan. You've probably gotten some of the spiciest breaking news off his Twitter or read one of his articles on Motorsport Magazine, Racer, Formula One, etc. He's a journalist true and true. He also, by the way, I found a beautiful quote. He said, being right is always better than being first, but being a good person is more important. Please welcome Chris Medland.
That's part of my self-help tour. If anyone wants tickets, we'll speak about them later. But thanks for having me, guys.
No worries. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. I forgot about that quote. Yeah, it makes me sound like such an idiot. But I mean, I stand by it. But still, it just sounds, it's what I was
waiting for like Confucius.
Yeah, we paint it on the wall behind here. But yeah, I'm good. How about you guys?
We're doing great. We're excited to chat with you. We've had in season 1 Lawrence Barretto, who I know is a good little friend of yours.
Yeah, lots to beat.
Yep, lots to beat. He was pretty rapid in our rapid fire round.
So let's see if you can top that.
Ooh, I don't feel like he handles pressure so well.
I know, right?
I'll take
we give him a long break. Let's just say that.
Yeah, we cut a lot.
Yeah.
But first question right away, Chris. I'm curious, for your priorities in 2024, what are some of the things on your plate right now that you're excited about?
Traveling, sorting, all the logistics of getting places, but genuinely really excited for the season to kick off. Partly because now we've seen all the cars. Red Bull going with a different concept.
Very different.
Either means we're in for another repeat of last year, which would be, I think, a lot for a lot of people to have to handle, but would be hugely impressive. Yeah. Or it's a bit of a gamble, and everyone else closing in anyway might mean that it gets even closer than it would have if they'd have just improved what they had. So I'm hoping for a more competitive season. But yeah, a lot of travel for me. I'll go to 21 of the 24 races.
Ooh, wow.
And only miss 3 as it stands. Maybe even one of those is at the end of the year that I might have to go to if it's exciting. And trying to balance then different workloads. I do some writing, do some broadcasts, try and mix it all together. But hopefully, reporting on an exciting season. That's always the aim. I do like a wish list on one of the websites, Racer, that you mentioned. And in that, basically every year, I'm like someone to challenge Red Bull. Or a 2-team battle, because we've seen how big F1 gets when we get that.
100%. And how has Formula One changed through your time of covering it?
Massively. It's become way more mainstream. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Liberty Media for that, to be fair. And yes, you mentioned that sometimes I write for F1.com, but what's really good is they have no issues with like conflicts of interest and stuff. I can criticize them whenever I want, which is great. But they've taken some risks that sometimes haven't paid off or people haven't liked, but other things have really worked and really clicked and really, I think, appealed to a wider mass audience. And when I started out, it was hard to convince kind of websites to send us, to give us the budget. The FIA actually didn't really accredit websites. They kind of felt like you had to be a print publication to get accreditation. And you think of the market they were missing out on then. Like so many people that get their stuff online or through podcasts or whatever. So understanding how fans were going to get into the sport and opening it up more genuinely has changed a lot. So I've done it for traveling. This will be my 11th full-time season, going to basically every race, and probably about 15 years of covering it. And in that time, it's been a huge change. And obviously Netflix played a big part in it, but the amount of people now that ask you questions, know a bit more, the amount of merch you see around, wearing a centre cap, but genuinely, I think I nearly see it rival football gear now. It's amazing. Certainly in the US, I was there for some of the launches recently. Way more there. I think more than any other sort of non-US based sport, like easily. And sometimes, so in Vegas, saw a good balance between Super Bowl stuff, 'cause it's Super Bowl week, and actual F1 merch. It was incredible.
Yeah. And what do you think is the biggest challenge now that Formula One is going to face in the coming years?
Keeping that interest in terms of, if you get the dominant years that we're having, is making sure people don't switch off and find it really boring. And I think Formula One's done a good job of that so far, like explaining the stories that are further down the grids, the nuance to the sport, the stuff that's not about who's winning. But the longer you have these spells, and people come back to 2021 a lot, but that was an epic season, and you don't get that regularly. So ensuring people are still following it and that base has stayed solid, I think is really important. I think not oversaturating the calendar. And I fear they're pretty darn close. Sergio Perez said yesterday there's too many races. He just flat said it, and I'd agree with him. I think you need a little bit longer between seasons sometimes to make people really miss it. I mean, if you do compare, Liberty said they want a bunch of Super Bowls, every race to be like a Super Bowl. Now, there's one Super Bowl a year for starters, but two, the gap in NFL seasons is huge.
Exactly.
And yes, you fill it with other things, but right now, as someone who kind of follows it and enjoys NFL, I'm already thinking September till they start again. Like, I can't wait for that to come around. But that gives you that kind of buzz. F1 needs to make sure it doesn't lose that, I think, and racing every week will start to lose that, I fear. So just always being present isn't enough to grow the sport. I think you've got to get the balance right. So that's probably one of the bigger challenges, because it's hard to turn down the money that's on offer from a new race. But you need to make sure that you don't kind of take that so much to the point that people are kind of, they don't find a race special.
I feel like they're just announcing a new track every week now.
And then they kind of say, I think the limit as it stands in the Concord is 24 or 25. So at the moment, with the ones they've announced, it means, well, some have to drop off, but then they don't say definitely. Like Madrid. Madrid, they're like, no, we could maybe still race in Barcelona too. It's like, one, I don't believe that's going to happen, but two, if it was to, like, what else drops off? Or are they just banking on the next Concord agreement saying you can have 30 races?
Oh, God, it's crazy.
So it was quite interesting, because obviously Fernando Alonso's been in the sport a long time, and he said it's crazy that we get 3 days of testing, and that's it. For a world championship, we get a day and a half each to prepare. Like, no other sports like that. That was put to Checo yesterday. Sorry to date this, but at the Red Bull launch. And at that, he said, no, I don't want any more testing. There's no time. We have 24 races. Like, take away the races and we can test more, but give us a break, basically. And it's not just the drivers, it's everyone involved. So, it's just growing and growing.
It's crazy.
And the good news even if 2024 has Max dominate, right? Even if Red Bull wins 24 races somehow, the good thing is I think everyone can look forward to 25 because of Lewis and Red. And that was definitely something, in my opinion, that saved F1 to a degree.
Oh, yeah.
How did you find out about the news? Like, did you believe it right away? And how did you go about, going through and doing your research before posting about it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's one of the main things is when I say about get it right, because it started to come out on Twitter, I think, that's where I first saw it. But someone else had messaged me from a rival team, and I was driving at the time because. Very long story. I'm good at telling long stories. But
I love it.
I was coming from my parents' place. I dropped the dog off for a few weeks because I was going for my birthday for a weekend in Rome to watch rugby. And then flying straight from there to the US for all the launches that were happening and a lot of meetings. So it was kind of bit of fun and then a lot of work. And I was in the car and I got this CarPlay message come through. And I was like, oh, what'd you make of this Lewis to Ferrari stuff? And in my head, I'm going, this again. So Ferrari are wanting to get Carlos to sign his deal. They're trying to put some pressure on. They've leaked something that says, we could go after Lewis in 26. That's why Carlos needs to accept what's in front of him, or we could even get him next year. And then I thought it was a play, like just in my first reaction. But before... I'm always careful. I think if you're going to be firm with the response, you've got to check that you're right. In the same way that you're going to get annoyed about something, you've got to make sure you can be annoyed. So I didn't want to be caught out. So I thought, I'll just see what it exactly is. So I stopped for a coffee and I had a look. And I saw it was on, I think it was motorsport.com. So it was Johnny Noble, the first tweet I saw from someone. And I noticed later there were more, but that was the first one that appeared. And I thought, if he's gone with it, this is someone I would trust to normally be pretty on the money. No one's right 100% of the time, but when people are pretty close, there must be something here. So then sent some messages around. And one of the replies that came back basically was pretty telling. So some you send to people that are Mercedes, some are other teams, some of the people that would have knowledge of the situation. F1's a weird network and who knows who. And you don't ever try and hang it on one person either, because they could get in trouble for it, but you try and get enough that's going to kind of mean if you add 1, 2 and 3 together, you've got your answer firmly. And it was like, there's legs here. And then I actually had someone who used to work at Mercedes be like, no, it'll be a contract thing. Again, from Lewis's point of view, he must want something. And I was like, no, it all adds up now. And at the time, actually, and I'm told this wasn't true from Formula One, but I felt it was going to be. The Andretti news had come out the day before. And I was like, the timing of that is just too good. So, and the way that played out, I was suddenly like, this would make sense. It is the sort of thing that would surely come across Stefano Domenicali's desk, that he'd know about it because, it's his sport that he's running and he's so well tied in with Ferrari in the past. I thought he'd be aware. So it suddenly all made sense. I was like, I think there's real legs here. So then you start trying to actually firm it up with someone. You need to get a source or two that say, you're not wrong. They normally are not going to say to you, yes, here are the details. You need to piece that together and then go to them and say, I believe this is happening, or I've kind of understood this. So I put that to someone pretty high ranking who kind of said, you wouldn't be you wouldn't look stupid if you wrote that. Like they're like, I can't tell you anything else, but you wouldn't look stupid. Right. So then you put it out there. But I'll admit that must have been a good hour, maybe 90 minutes after the first tweets that I'd then checked and seen and gone, partly because I had to drive home, so I was doing a lot of this on CarPlay again, sending messages, and you're trying to make sure. Yeah, exactly. It was a bit of a stress, but but that's actually a rapid turnaround, I'd say, in terms of the size of the news. And that morning, it's starting to come out, and by mid-morning, running your own story saying this is happening, and then having to wait. And once it got to that point, by then you knew, or I'd found out there was the meeting at Mercedes that they were going to be told, or we're pretty certain they were going to be told. If we'd been told after that meeting, no, it wasn't about that at all.
Imagine.
Man. But again, that's why you've got to be sure when you go with it. So, then it was just kind of waiting for the actual official announcement. And it turned out I was on a plane for that. So I'll go to Rome. But there was Wi-Fi, so that saved me. That happens a lot as well.
I feel terrible for Andretti, though. Like, if you look at the sequence of events with Lewis,
forgotten.
The stake news came out too, it became a lot more prominent, and then Christian Horner,
it's been a while. Few weeks.
Crazy few weeks.
But I think you're right with the Lewis news. Is that so? A lot of those are maybe negative. I mean, like the reaction. Obviously, we can't be certain right now of what's been going on with Christian, but it's certainly not a positive situation. You've got the Andretti one, where I think a lot of the fan reaction was really negative towards what they felt was a rejection, or at least it's going to be a long time to wait. And then the Lewis stuff happens. You're like, well, hang on, this is a good thing. This is exciting. And as much as it again made sense that I thought it was timing was convenient for F1, but the reaction was from a select group of hardcore fans really to the Andretti news, or already core F1 fans. The Lewis news, you've got friends and people that you haven't spoken to in ages messaging you being like, how much are you getting paid?
What is happening?
Did you know it's coming? That don't care about F1. That really went.
It's like a BBC headline.
Exactly.
That made the whole world news.
I think when I was at Heathrow waiting to fly, I was on Fabrizio Romano's transfer deadline day show because they were like, it's the biggest transfer today. And then it was some New Zealand radio and Australian morning TV. They all wanted to get reaction on it because it was just, it extended beyond F1 and basically extended beyond sport. It was great.
That's crazy. But on Lewis's part, do you think that was the right timing to announce something like this?
Yeah, actually. Because look at the buzz it's made. Look at the excitement. He's also got a bit of detachment, so he's kind of slightly addressed it with his own social media posts, with the Mercedes launch where he answered kind of agreed questions from their own host, but he mentioned it a bit. And Ferrari have then done a little bit of the same around their launch. So they've kind of made that first step of talking about it. We'll go to testing and there'll be some more questions, but by then it's not new news. It's kind of developed a little bit. And I think actually it gives them the best window to focus on the season. Whereas if it came out in the summer, one, keeping it quiet would be harder because people are around each other a lot more. And two, 1 week, 2 weeks later, you're at a race and it's going to be everyone's there. Whereas at the moment, I mean, testing is normally less well attended than races are in terms of media coverage. Access is more limited. And then, they've had the breathing space for a few weeks before that. So I think that made sense. And it was so big, it was always going to be the biggest headline anyway. They couldn't preempt other things. But the Andretti one, I don't think they needed to worry. That's a shame that's a negative story as such. But Lewis going to Ferrari was always going to blow anything out the water.
That's very true.
And if anything, I think we can just be grateful now. Every single race is going to be his last at Mercedes, which is kind of cool to be able to go and being like, oh, that's special.
Gonna miss this.
That's special. I'm curious on when it comes to journalism, how you stay objective. Like, you definitely probably have favorites. Even if you don't tell me you do, I think everyone does, right? How do you commentate, report in a way that is fair?
To be honest, you don't have favourites on track.
Right.
You genuinely don't. Okay. Partly because it is a bit of a travelling circus, and that doesn't mean you get on with everyone and love everybody, but you get to know lots of different people in lots of different teams. You do get proper friends within teams, and you still maintain a professional relationship, but people you still hang out with afterwards or go for a drink with or play golf with, whatever it may be. Right. So I'm going to get slammed by some mates for bringing up golf this early. But so from that, you then... When a team does well, you feel good for those people in that team. And when a team doesn't do well, you feel bad for the people you know. So you kind of get this weird juxtaposition. But you never just have this one way, like, I'm so delighted that went well for them and I hate them. That just doesn't exist because all the teams are made up of great humans, genuinely are. Like, I know it sounds like a bit cliche or whatever, but they really are. So from that point of view, you don't have favourites. You do then in terms of, say, like a driver to interview or someone to speak to off record, whatever. Like Daniel Ricciardo always comes up, but he is great fun. Like we're the same age. We kind of came up at similar times into F1. I remember him getting the Red Bull seat in 2014, and I'd been pretty new when he joined with Toro Rosso. He'd already done the HRT year. So I'd done a lot of interviewing of him then because I'd been working with a lot of the junior teams. And then when he got to Red Bull, I remember him doing his first test and doing an interview, just post-session behind the garage. And the way certain websites were structured with multiple journalists, some looked after lower teams and some looked after bigger teams. So him stepping up meant he then dealt with someone he'd never seen before. Actually, Johnny Noble again, just giving him a shout out. And Johnny was looking after Red Bull and I think Ferrari and Mercedes or whatever for Autosport at the time. So for Ricciardo, this was someone he didn't really know and trust yet. And he was trying to be careful what he said. You could tell he was nervous. Red Bull gear for the first time. What shouldn't I say? Obviously, it's 2014 as well. The engine wasn't great, that sort of thing. So he was being a bit wary. And I remember then going to ask a question and him turning to see who was asking it. And his face kind of lit up a little. Not massively, he doesn't love me.
Are you sure?
But yeah. Oh, yeah, he'll definitely tell you he doesn't. But no, it was more like, someone I know and I can kind of trust. I know the sort of things you ask. I know the way you handle things. And I noticed then, I was like, those relationships do go both ways. Like, we learn what's good about a driver and how they react well to you. But they also, they work it out the other direction. So, Kimi Räikkönen was very good at that. So if someone ever asked him a bad question, never forgot it, would give them awful answers. Because it's like, you asked me a stupid question once.
You're gonna get
if you never do, you actually could ask a pretty poor question, but not stupid. And because you built up that trust with him, or kind of acceptance, was probably the better word, he would give you a long answer. And people always criticised him for not talking much. He talked almost as much as I am now. So yeah, you got all this balance everywhere. But then when you see them on track, you're kind of thinking more of the wider team thing or the sporting narrative. Like, what's going to be the best story for the sport right now? The big one I come back to was 21. And without digging into the detail of the way that race went, heading into that final race, couldn't have cared less who won the title, really, because they were level on points. It was a perfect scenario. And so in Jeddah, much happier that Lewis beat Max because you went in with that perfect storyline of them level on points. Then you think, so Lewis has had so many titles he's won. Maybe if Max ended that, for people that are kind of loose fans, they don't see the headline Hamilton wins again, and they go, oh, something different happened, and they're interested. You think maybe that works, but then you think, but if Lewis wins, he stands alone. So you look at the different kind of angles of it. And that might be the way, I wouldn't call it favoritism, but you think you want a certain outcome on a certain day, maybe. But that could flip literally week to week because of, if someone's winning all the time, I mean, you see it now. People wanted the Mercedes dominance to end. Now everyone wants the Red Bull dominance to end. I think we're all the same. We want competitive racing. So, it's you genuinely don't have a favorite in that traditional sense.
And talking about the paddock experience, what's been your most favorite moment or memory that you have?
Oh, that's a really tough one. How long are you going to have to edit out this massive pause?
Okay.
Because I don't know if there has been one standout, to be honest. There's been a lot of cool different things. Hosted a few of the official press conferences. So post-race, I remember doing Kimi's last win with Ferrari in Austin and him just sitting there on his own waiting. And just being so chilled and calm, and actually weirdly then asking me if I had a son because he'd seen a kid outside that he thought looked like me. I do not have a son. And at that point I definitely didn't have a son. I was miles from it. But just as he said that, Max sat down, and this is all before we started broadcasting it. And he's like, look, you scared him now. He's wondering what he's done. And all this banter starts flying between these drivers that just raced and you sat there ready to interview them, which was cool. So hosting those was always fun. I did enjoy doing that. And grid walking is always a highlight every week. Whether it's for radio or TV, just that feels like a really privileged position to be. There'll probably be something that jumps out at me soon that I suddenly go, I should have said this. I remember doing Rosberg's retirement as a story. When that broke, that was massive. And I remember you mentioned I tweet a lot.
Week, 2 weeks
it was,
after?
it was in Vienna. It was the FIA Pride Giving. So we sat down for the press conference and he walked in, and we'd done all the others, kind of F3, F2, all the way up. And it was like, and Nico's got something to say first. And he said it. And as he was saying it, it was the fact that his voice broke partly through. You're like, this is real. But he finished what he said and it was quiet. And again, I don't know why he's always featuring this podcast, but Johnny Noble's there. And he was sat next to Kate Walker, who used to be a journalist that worked in F1 as well. And I remember he just kind of leant to her and went, is he kidding? I remember hearing him say that, and by then I'd already tweeted it. I'd been
Yeah.
like, no, like, he's retired with immediate effect. And you couldn't have put on that show. You knew it was true, but it was a massive shock. And I remember then my phone blowing up with everyone going, "I think your Twitter's been hacked."
Wow.
Genuinely, no one believed it.
Jeez.
And weirdly, then I was crossing over between jobs. I was writing for 2 websites. I had to do twice the work. So that was a big one. But yeah, that was a highlight as well because you're in the middle of a story you didn't see coming. It just happens.
Yeah.
So that, in a weird way, the Grosjean crash in Bahrain was, again, trying to make sure you were accurate and right.
Yeah.
But the fact that he walked away from that was incredible. And then the way that I think brought back into focus the dangers of F1, the speeds, the safety element, the way that things happen. There was so much there that maybe doesn't get enough love and limelight, I think, that is kind of, people think of some of the safety aspects as being boring and not talked about.
Right.
And that was one of these incredible moments that brought it all to the fore again. And I think was, just as a story to be part of, was actually weirdly, I don't want this to come across as odd, but kind of weirdly thrilling to be within once you knew he was safe. Because it was like, how did that happen? And how are you all right? And is everyone else all right? And once you knew they were, you then look back on it with like, that was almost cool. But at the moment, it maybe wasn't so much.
Right. Yep. And then final question of Q1. I actually, speaking, about the Romain Grosjean crash, I saw that you went on record to say that one of the most difficult parts of the job of reporting is reporting about injuries or deaths. The first time I think you had to report on it was 2014 in Suzuka with Jules. How do you prepare, emotionally for something like that? It's not typically common, thankfully, in motorsport anymore, but how does one prepare for that?
I don't think you really do. I think you have to be aware, a bit like I said about the way the Grosjean crash brought things to the fore. I think people just need to be aware that how easily this can happen. Because anyone who's been trackside at a Grand Prix, I'll be like, wow, this is incredible. If anyone's ever been trackside for a crash at a Grand Prix, the most pathetic crash on TV is incredible stood next to it. Like the energy involved, the speeds. And we are so used to drivers jumping out. I always recall an example. I was at Monaco it was a Formula Renault 3.5 race, it's like a support race for the Grand Prix. And because it wasn't when F1 running was going on, went trackside to watch, thought this would be cool, watched the start of the race. I was on the outside of the swimming pool chicane. And the first few laps, high fuel, cold tyres, you can see cars getting out of shape. And because they're not F1 cars, they're not flat through there. They're kind of having to judge it. And you can just see a few getting out of shape. You're like, someone's gonna get this wrong. Yeah. And then eventually, someone did. You just saw the rear end step out too much on the first part. You're like, they're not going to gather that. And they're kind of almost spinning towards the outside barrier. And there was 3 or 4 of us there. And we ducked, kind of like get down behind the barrier. And like it hit it darn hard. You felt the heat from it hitting the barrier and like scraping along it. And then they slid down toward the end part of the swimming pool, and we stood up and you had little bits of carbon fiber stuck to you that kind of like the way it shatters, just tiny little bits of it. And it was just because also it was warm, so genuinely you'd sweat a bit and it was stuck to you. And instant red flag was out, and you were like, no wonder. And then you realise that it wasn't for the crash we'd seen at all, and they show that as a replay. And that was just like if you watch a quali lap and someone just tags the wall. It was really light, or seemed really light on TV. Someone had gone straight on at turn 1 over the back of another car. So I think the car in front of them had braked earlier. They'd gone to jink out to overtake them, got it kind of wrong, been lifted up onto the back of them. So the 2 of them went straight on. And when they hit the barrier, the one on the back then got launched up, but went straight up and came back down, and landed basically where it was. Drivers were okay. The ones that were in most danger were the photographers, because they're on a photographer tower there. And there was a guy that I know that was stood on it, and he thought, this is me done. But the car went up and stayed where it was, didn't come at them. And that was the red flag. And when you saw that, you're suddenly like, well, A, no wonder that's a red flag, but B, this felt huge and it was nothing. So I think people totally underestimate the energy. These cars are doing 200 miles an hour. Like when they stop, like there's a lot of energy to dissipate. And so being aware of that, long answer as usual, being aware of that and being prepared for that comes from, I think, from the get-go, just knowing that could happen. And then you get triggers. So unless we saw it happen live, so like the Grosjean crash, everyone saw the fireball go up and they knew something weird had happened. You're in kind of a bit shocked straight away. You're like, what's just happened and are they okay? With the Bianchi crash, Sutton had already crashed there. We kept seeing shots of it. And then the car was being craned away the last time we'd seen. We'd gone to other shots and then we went back there and everything was a bit more static and you couldn't see Bianchi there. But I was like, why are they showing us this? This is weird. But that instantly gave you a feeling. So you're starting to prepare that something's happened. Then I looked at the timing screens and could see that Bianchi hadn't come through the next sector.
Right.
And then it said stop next to his name, and I think would have been the middle sector at that point. And it still hadn't put an ident up to say what was happening there. But people were getting annoyed. They're like, why are we seeing this? Like in the media centre, people were like, show us the race again. Because it was wet, it was dramatic. So they thought someone could go off. They wanted to be watching. And I remember a guy called Sam Collins, who's a technical journalist who works with F1. He started going like, what do you mean? Like he could tell I was nervy about something or was kind of responding to something. And he started looking. He was like, and I said, look, it says Bianchi stopped. And he's like, that can't be good there. Like there's a tractor there. And then it put his name up. So then you knew someone had gone off. And everyone's like, oh, well, where is he at first? And slowly, again, normally it's the more experienced journalists, actually. Some of the older guys that have done this for decades, 30, 40 years. Any accident, their first thought is the driver okay? I actually learned that Grosjean's crash in 2012 at Spa when he triggered the big one. Yeah. And I was like, wow, Alonso's out, Hamilton's out. All these title rivals are involved in this. And they were like, calm down, like wait for everyone to get out of their cars. Because someone's head could have been taken off in that. So... And that I was suddenly like, you're right. I was like this excitable kid. Yeah. So over time, I think you start to think that way as well, and you're just aware it could happen. And afterwards, you just have to be as professional as possible. You just have to respect how hard it is for people that are close to it. You can't get anything wrong. Yeah. And realistically, as much as you want to report it as quickly as you can, this is a matter of life or death at that point, and there's no use being wrong there. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you don't find out for days or weeks, or if someone never tells you. Like what matters is the health and safety of the person involved. Then.
Correct. Well said. That is Q1, Henny.
That's
your
purple.
Verdict? Purple?
Purple
okay.
sector.
We're going right through. Yeah, starting off strong. I don't think Lawrence got a purple.
No, I think he got a green.
He got a green. Sector. So far, so good. Right now, Chris is beating Lawrence Barretto.
Yes.
But we'll see if he can stay ahead in Q2 coming up.
Henny, you've been traveling quite a bit.
I have been, but I'm excited to be back and getting back into routine and shooting more episodes.
Let's go. Speaking of excitement, we got Field of Greens. It's a new partner of ours. Have you heard of them?
I have not, but I'm super excited. Tell me more.
So it's basically a whole fruit and vegetable product with no extracts.
Really? So that means, even the bottle says it's organic.
Oh,
really?
It's organic, non-GMO, and super healthy.
Oh, that must be really good for your gut, whether it's the gut, your lungs, your heart, throughout your whole system.
The whole system. And best thing as well, each container... one scoop, and there's 30 servings in a scoop. And I've pre-made you one right here.
I'm excited. Does that mean I can take it anytime during the day?
Morning, evening, even if you're craving a little sugar dip, perfect.
We all have been there. So 100%. Here we go. Let's give this a try.
Okay, guys, for the rest of you out there, let's get you started with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code TRACKLIMITS. That's promo code TRACKLIMITS at fieldofgreens.com. What do you think?
You guys need to get on this. This is fantastic. I don't like sweet stuff, but this is not sweet at all. It's rich in taste. I really like this. I'm going to take like 3 a day.
And even with the varied flavors, it's perfect.
Oh, can't recommend this enough. Everyone get on this right now. And back to the episode.
Welcome back to the Track Limits podcast. We're here with Henny and Chris. Chris, how did you feel you did in Q1?
I think it was a solid performance, but probably a bit on the long side.
No. I think everyone, feel free to chime in, but I like how nuanced your answers are, right? Yes. It's not just, a sugar-coated response, kind of stereotypical kind of main response that you would give to any question. It's very in-depth, which is nice.
That's like he's been doing this his whole life.
It's almost like he's a journalist.
Yeah. Is he? Well, I guess we'll find out.
It's a loose term.
Let's take you back, though, before your career in F1. And I'm curious, growing up, where did you grow up? Was motorsport a big part of your life growing up, or did you kind of stumble into it later on?
So I grew up in Somerset in southwest England. Cool. So Jenson, Button, Lando, Norris country, actually. It basically 3 of the quickest guys in Formula One.
Yep.
Yeah. Jenson, Lando, and myself.
Yep.
I was going to say,
great county cricket team.
Say, what happened to you?
We have a county cricket team that's pretty good. My football team, soccer team is from there. That's not so good. 6th tier at the moment, Yeovil Town. We got to the championship. We were 2nd tier for a while. Wow. Well, for 1 year.
Quite the decline.
It's quick. When you're that smaller club and you start going down, you haven't got the power to stop it. Kind of flew too close to the sun, really. But what was quite funny was Paul Hembry, who used to run Pirelli, who was a motorsport boss at Pirelli, huge Bristol City fan who were rivals with Yeovil, but kind of Yeovil wanted to beat Bristol City a lot. Bristol City didn't really care. Yeovil were too small. So he quite liked us. But we made a bet in 2013, it would have been, that if Yeovil got promoted into the championship, I had to show up in the paddock wearing a green and white striped shirt, which was our kit. I thought that meant an actual like normal shirt. So I went and bought a green and white striped shirt when we won. And I show up in it, and he's like, "What the hell's that? I meant your kit. I meant the Yeovil kit." And I was like, "I didn't need to buy this. I've got loads of those." So I had to come in twice looking stupid. Because they actually went up. And I seem to remember it was either the promotion day or the game before they got promoted, watching the game and then leaving that evening to drive to the Spanish Grand Prix. That was a long way down. But so Somerset's where I grew up. That was the question you asked. I was into F1. It was my dad used to watch it a bit. My mum wasn't huge on sport, but she would kind of dip in and out of it. She kind of was patriotic in terms of following British drivers or whatever. And then so when Jenson made his debut, I was 11. Wow. Just to age him. So 2000. And that was a really cool story because that was the local kid who was young, kind of unexpected. It was quite a quick rise for him. And he was on all the local news as well, and he was driving for Williams, so iconic British team at that point. So as an impressionable young kid, then I was very patriotic. I'm like, well, I'm going to support him. And that obviously took a while till it became successful for him. Like good first season, and then it got a bit tough. But it was great to have such a quality driver that you were kind of following. But then that got me really into. I was watching every race, every session. I think the first one I watched was back in. That I remember was 96, maybe 95, Australia, waking up for that. Must have been 96. I remember waking up and watching it. So I was watching regularly from them, but that's what got me kind of hooked on the depth of F1 and getting into the details. And if I've got one thing that I think I'm good at, it's knowing my limitations. Certainly in things that I'm not skilled at. And I wasn't skilled enough to be a professional sportsman. So when you're at school and everyone's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would have wanted to be a professional footballer or professional racing driver. And I never got to go karting that much. I got to do a birthday at like 8 or 9 and then the odd time on holiday. Like I did no proper karting.
But you were the Max Verstappen when you were on the track.
I tell you, if my parents had the money, right now you'd be talking to multiple world champions.
So you'd be like, Jenson Button who?
Yeah, exactly. Like, he'd have been reporting on me. That's going to bite me. So
you hear this, Jenson?
Exactly. He has to work with my wife now as well at Sky, so he will tell arrogant you are. I knew that I'm not going to make it. So then I was like, what's the next best thing? To be paid to watch sport because I loved watching it. So I then tailored all my GCSEs and all my education to it and went and did sports journalism at the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, which at the time, again, it's kind of aging myself a bit, it would have been 2008 that I went. It was the only uni, one of only 2 unis that did sports journalism as a degree. Now there's loads, but at that point it was the only 2. It was there or Staffordshire, and I decided to go to Preston. It was really good sporting heartland, lots of football clubs, rugby league clubs up there, cricket, and actually it had a Formula Ford team as well at the uni, so I got to report on those. But it was the thing that genuinely really set me on the path to F1 coverage was the first week we had a seminar, and there's about 30 people in the course. We sat around the room in a U shape, and the leader of the seminar goes, what do you want to cover when you complete this course? Go. And I was somewhere in the middle of the room. The first person goes, football. And if I'd have been first 1, 2, or 3, would have said football, 100%. Because you think easier to get into. I could become the Yeovil Town correspondent. I could live down in Somerset. I'd still have a full-time job watching the team I like. But I also thought that extends to any club around the country. There's 92 professional clubs or football league clubs, more professional ones. So being the local correspondent, there's 100 jobs already. Formula One, there's one series and 10 teams, and no one follows just one team really, unless maybe Ferrari in Italy. So I was like, Formula One's not realistic, but I was not just going to say football like everyone else by this point. So it got to me and I said Formula One. I think 2 other guys said rugby, and that was it. Like that was from then on. They were saying, right, you've got to tailor your work to Formula One within this degree. And it turned out the course leader was best friends with Jonathan Ledyard, who was the BBC commentator at the time. So I got introduced to him. Then you make contacts that way, and it just kind of snowballed. So kind of the luck of just saying Formula One in that seminar is kind of what led it that way.
But what was your first year like as a journalist?
Also with Johnny Herbert in his class.
Same,
No,
was he teaching it?
The first year was tough actually because I joined ESPN. I graduated from uni and I'd done some work experience around F1, done some bits. I'd worked on the BBC coverage in 2009. So again, to give the full backstory, but 2008 was the first year, and at that summer So it would have been 2007 to 2008, and it was the Olympics in Beijing, and the BBC wanted casual workers. So our course leader sent round this job application saying that you should all apply for these things. It'd be a good way of getting some work in the summer, kind of in the industry. It was very base level TV logging, but it would get you in, maybe make some contacts. And I think 3 of us completed it because it was a long form, and I got a job on the TV coverage. So it was in Television Centre in London. Came down for about 3 weeks over the summer. Great experience, incredible. And then, because the BBC were getting the rights and the producer from that worked on MotoGP, they were connected. I ended up helping them prepare for 2009 when the BBC took over. So I was already doing some stuff, but then you graduate and think, right, I'll walk straight into a job, and it doesn't happen. So I ended up doing an internship, unpaid internship at Bauer Media, who owned a load of titles, a lot of lads mags at the time. And I ended up helping run their FHM website, which was an experience. But actually what was quite good there is there was only one guy on the desk. I was really impressed with how clever everyone was, because they're writing to an audience, but they are adapting all the time. They're not typically what you'd kind of expect. But only one guy was into sport out of everyone. And he broke his leg while playing football while I was there. It was a 3-month unpaid internship. So I started picking up some of the stuff to help him. I got sent to Vancouver to interview David Hay. I got to do some really cool stuff. So I was like, this is good. Maybe this will turn into a full-time job. No, it didn't. And in doing that, because it was unpaid, I was doing some extra BBC work at the time, logging, really basic stuff, watching football. Again, just to try and keep my hand in, be able to do the journalism part, but you're just scrabbling around being like, hopefully something will come up. And then ESPN advertised at the start of 2011 for a deputy or assistant editor, I think it was assistant editor on their F1 website. So they had one guy full-time, they'd lost the person that had been above them and wanted someone to come in like junior. So fortunately then, having been trying to just gain experience and with some F1 background, I managed to get that job. And I got it in what would have been probably late January to start in March for the first race, basically. And in February, I think it was, or maybe the very end of January, Robert Kubica had his huge accident in a rally car. And they kind of asked me to work remotely to help them on that. But then you had this storyline that was kind of, sensitive and difficult about a guy that, nearly died, and then the injuries he's got and all the speculation and photos and the way media were intruding on him. And I had to cover that basically first up. That was our main talking point going into the season at that stage. So, I found that pretty daunting. You're like, wow, don't get this wrong. And within ESPN, one, because they knew I was new and young, they were very firm. I remember tweeting about Narain Karthikeyan and getting a speeding fine in FP1 of the first race in Melbourne. And because I was making the insinuation that he was a paid driver in that team, I said it could be a very expensive year for him. On my own Twitter, bit of a joke, which hardly anyone followed me then, like 2,000 followers, whatever. And I think, like, no issue from the team or from Narain or anything, but my boss was like, if it's worth tweeting, you tweet it from the official account or not at all, and really gave me a dressing down. I always find that really funny now because I tweet all the time. But at the time, it's how it was seen. And a lot of lessons at that point. Didn't get to travel to any races or tests or anything, all covered remotely, and just trying to find the right balance and style and not get in trouble with my boss. And I did then. I found it intense, but you're just dreaming of one day getting to go to a race and that sort of thing. And that first year was like setting the groundwork, I guess.
Right. And you are married to Jess McFadden.
I am.
Or just Medland now, I guess.
Yeah, correct.
There we go. And obviously she's an unbelievable person. Everything that she's done, WTF1, obviously now it's Sky. You guys are both very busy. And I'm curious if you're comfortable sharing, like, how does work-life family balance work for you guys? Like, are you seeing each other a lot, or because you're doing 21 races as well?
You don't actually see each other anywhere near as you'd like. It's way easier than I think anyone who's got a marriage with someone that's outside the sport, because she A, understands it, and B, there's some times that we get to be together. So she travels to about 8 races a year. The way it's kind of split for them, it's like 8 on the ground, 8 producing from Sky Studios, and 8 where you're preparing for one of those other 2. So you're only traveling to about 8 of them. So those 8 are great when we're both there, although both flat out busy. So you do genuinely just get these little moments to say hi, especially hers, because live TV, it's fun when we bump into each other on the grid. Quite often I get in her way or Martin's way. So, Brundle will want to interview someone and I've got there first. And Jess will be... Abu Dhabi, I did it. She was producing that last year and I got Chris Hemsworth. And Martin couldn't hear where we were in the conversation, but also been told where he was and had made a beeline for him. And I was there doing a walk and talk for Sirius XM radio. And Brundle eventually is like, I need to get him. And I don't know if if they're done here, but he started going, Martin Brundle, Sky Sports F1, and I could hear it, and the answer was still being given. So I'm like, that's rude. So I walked, almost jokingly, but I walked off and messaged Jess being like, how rude. And her reply was like, you're going to get me fired. But it is tough. I mean, today, it won't surprise people that know me that I was slightly late here because, we've got a dog, and you have to think about, we don't have kids or anything yet, but you have to think about how do you structure your life around something else that you're looking after. And I had to drop her at the station to go into work for the right time. I had to then take him to a daycare place before getting to a train to get into here. And honestly, on that drive to the station was a bit tense because we're making plans for when I'm in Bahrain, which is going to be best part of 2 weeks. She's not, but she needs to be in the office a number of days. So again, the dog needs looking after for a big window, and the person that normally does it is away. And it sounds silly, but then it's like these little stressful moments. You have to do a lot of planning. And some people would be like, you shouldn't have got a dog. But actually part of that was because Jess wasn't traveling so much, and because I was away so much, it was companionship. It was, she's there working weekends as well. She was working for the Motorsport Network at the time. And it was one of those where if you're going to be home working, you can't really socialise with people. They're going out for their weekends and you're not. So it was less lonely. And he's great when we're both at home, and I try and get home as much as I can for both. But yeah, it's led to me traveling in a sense more. I come back more often between races. For example, this year I'm going to cover the Saudi Grand Prix remotely because she's producing it for Sky, highly stressful from the studio. So I'll be at home to kind of basically mean she doesn't have to worry about anything else, and I can work remotely on that one. And you just got to pick a few. So you try and match each other's schedules. Yeah. But it is actually tough in that sense. It's really hard when you leave each other. I think she put it on TikTok. We got married on the Saturday, and on the Monday night, I think it was, or maybe the Tuesday, I flew to Singapore and Japan. So over 2 weeks away. 2 important races. I had a lot of work at both, and that was it. You're in this bubble for 48 hours, and then it's like, right, see you later. And that's just for us. And we, like I say, she works in the sport, so we do get to see each other more often. There's people that have to do that all the time with families that are living at home and stuff. And I think, again, when the calendar keeps expanding, it does take its toll. I saw Beck Clancy, who writes for the Times, she's leaving the Times now, and she said one of the things was she looked at the calendar, 24 races, and just can't do that. And there are team members that are the same. So, yeah, it's that side of it can be very hard. But it's nice to be able to understand the industry each other works in and support each other within it, bounce ideas off each other. We can't really talk too much about confidential stuff. There's times where she will have known things that I would have loved to have known for work. But she can't tell me. And she won't, and the main thing there is we try not to hint that we know something, because then you almost want to tell you almost want to tell them. You really want to go and make the point that this will make your life easier if you know this, but you have to have that separation, and we do have that. That's been actually something that's been quite easy. We both understand we need that, so it doesn't that bit isn't too challenging.
Yeah. And outside of work, what are some hobbies that you guys share, or what you guys do?
He's like, there's no time. Yeah, we do. We go sport. We love to watch sport. I'm lucky that that I normally come up with a lot of the plans. I'm like, we could go and watch this, go and do that. And Jess generally buys into them. I don't think, there was one time she did call me out where I think we had 4 weekends in a row last winter going to watch lower league football. And she was like, how am I at another lower league football game? How has this happened? And I was like, okay, this is maybe a bit much. Because the first one was fun and different. And then the second one was like, well, okay, that's like, the first one was our local team where we used to live. And you could take the dog and it was just a nice day out and it was part of a wider day. Right. Second one, we were going down to see my parents, coincided with a Yeovil game. I was like, we could go there on the way. All right, fine. You haven't seen them a while. And then the next two, I can't remember how they happened. But so
you have to give up like movie nights for them.
But yeah, a bit of that. She's very good at humouring me with, I like to run, like to try and stay fit. Running the tracks is an easy way of staying fit. I'm clearly not built for gyms and things, so running's the only way I try and keep the weight off. And we're going to do park run together and stuff. And again, something you can take the dog and do. But weirdly, that's kind of it. And going out and maybe having nice dinners if we can or something, trying to get a bit of quality time. But the rest of the time you work so far beyond normal working hours as well. Like she'll get home 7, 8 o'clock at night from the studio, or if not, we'll both be sat working on our laptops until 8, 9 o'clock. And you kind of, it's so hard to detach because for 1 minute you think you're done and you go onto, I don't know, a different website and follow the cricket on BBC Sport or something. And then the next minute an email drops and you start to respond to it, and because you're still in the environment. We're bad for that. But that's why if anyone does follow Jess on Instagram more than me, I think, when we do get a bit of a break and we go away, we try and make the most of it. So go somewhere nice, have a good chunk of time Our honeymoon recently, we went to the Maldives, which I never dreamt I'd ever get to go to. And thanks to all of our wedding guests for helping us actually make that realistic. But there, it was like, heck of a long season. Didn't get the chance after the wedding to really spend much time together. Yeah. So you think, okay, this is how we reward ourselves. You have to try and find those little wins, I think, in the gaps you can get.
Final question of Q2. Is there something in kind of the last, let's even say 5 years, that you've had to unlearn to take a step forward in your career? Is there something you can point to that you're like, I had to unlearn that or remove that habit in order to be able to move forward?
I'd say probably shorter stories, which is not a good explanation right now. But yeah, because I started doing sort of some TV stuff off the back of doing the first Netflix series, I got to do some TV coverage with NBC, that was a Middle East broadcaster, grid walks, things like that. Yeah. And when you're writing, you can add context to stuff and you can edit it and you get a couple of goes at it. That's what I really like about writing. You write a sentence, you think, that's not so good, delete, do it again. Whereas for broadcast, you say it, it's gone. And getting stuff shorter so that when you're interviewing people, or actually with that was because they would then translate what I said into Arabic for a while, keeping it concise and clear. And the way the audience has changed. So sometimes you can't say something like everyone knows it. You need to explain a little bit more on a basic level. Don't waste loads of time doing what I usually do and go into the nuance. But then not alienate the hardcore fan who knows that. Don't patronize them. So getting that was probably something where I probably had to unlearn being, I don't want to say geeky's the wrong term, but going into such depth all the time. So hopefully a platform like this is okay to do it. But when it's live broadcasting, you have to change that a little bit. And something I definitely haven't done yet, and I joked about it when I arrived, but it's my appearance. I'm too lazy. I get up and roll out of bed, shower, sometimes put some product in my hair to try and tame it, usually don't. And then I see like a clip of something where I'm in the background or whatever, and I'm like, God, I'm cool.
You look good. Well, I can see the monitor a little bit.
Thanks, guys. But even that, it was like, right, have I got a jumper that's clean at the moment, which I dirtied on the car this morning. But you're suddenly thinking, I should think about what I wear. And there are people that do it because the more presentable you are, like that can help your career opportunities as well. Someone thinks, they look smart on TV. Whereas, if I'm just there and like print media stuff, and it doesn't matter what you look like, but also I just didn't put the time and effort into it. And I don't think it is vanity. I always used to think it was, and it's not. It's just putting in a bit of effort. It's just having a bit of pride in your appearance and thinking how that could help you. So that's something I probably haven't learned and should.
Right.
You're going to give him a green to make things exciting?
I am. I'm going to give you a green.
I'm glad that was a green. I thought that was going to be it's a yellow. He's ruined his life.
It's like interview done.
Yeah, exactly. Like abort in the pit.
Final round coming up. The rapid fire round,
Here we
actually.
go. Oof.
Where the answers will have to be rapid in order to get a purple to beat Lawrence Barretto. We will find out if Chris can edge Lawrence out. Stay tuned.
Okay, TL crew, as you know, we aren't afraid to ask the tough questions and tackle tough topics with our guests. So we wanted to take a quick pause and chat about a very important topic with men's health, erectile dysfunction to be exact. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides access to doctor-trusted ED treatment options, such as chewable hard mints or generic alternates for up to 95% cheaper. The process is simple and 100% online. No uncomfortable doctor's visits. Answer a series of questions on their site and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships to you for free. No insurance is needed. If ED is getting you down, it's time you join the hundreds of thousands of trusted HIMS subscribers and get treated. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/tracklimits. That's HIMS.com/tracklimits for your personalized ED treatment options. Hard mints are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Welcome to the final segment of the Track Limits podcast. Henny, we're going to get into the rapid fire round. Normally, I ask our guests if they're nervous. Are you nervous?
I'm nervous because I think he's not going to be concise.
Oh,
calling it out. Calling it out.
You should be nervous.
Can you imagine? It's like the
I'm
first
not nervous because I know
it's going to be like 20 minutes long.
Here we go. First question, Chris.
Right.
Which social media platform would you delete out of the bigger platforms?
Facebook doesn't count.
Yeah, Facebook does not count.
Instagram.
Okay.
Okay. Racing memorabilia you currently own or would love to own?
Would love to own a replica car.
Oh, with the engine in it still?
No, I want to hang it on the wall.
yeah.
Okay,
Which
okay.
means I want a bigger house and somewhere I can hang on the wall. How cool does that look?
Yeah.
If you had to choose another sport to be a journalist in, other than football, what would that be?
Baseball.
Ooh.
Big Cubs fan.
Yeah,
Okay,
all
okay.
right.
Nice. Another motorsport journalist you have a ton of respect for.
Actually, I'll say Johnny Noble because I've mentioned him enough in this interview.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I'm sorry to everyone I didn't just mention, but yeah, I'll say
nice.
Johnny.
The most unpopular opinion you have.
Cool.
Oh God, this is where it gets tough.
Don't get cancelled.
Michael Massey was not trying to get Max Verstappen to win the title.
Fair. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Yep. Boldest prediction for the 2024 F1 season.
4 different teams will win races.
Oh, that would be
Okay,
fun.
That'd be awesome.
let's do
I
it.
love that.
Clips that up in the future.
Yeah.
So then there's 0.
Yeah.
Just
Can
one
you
team.
imagine just one team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite race to be a fan at?
Austin.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. If you woke up and realized you'd become Lawrence Barretto, what's the first thing you would do?
Message myself and ask, has Lawrence become me?
That's genius. Outside of work, what's your favorite obsession right now? Something that you just can't stop thinking about.
Golf.
Really? Oh no way.
I'm bad at golf,
Yeah.
but I love it.
Everyone's bad at golf.
At the beginning, everyone's bad. Next question. If you can bring back one retired circuit to the Formula One calendar, what track would it be?
It's a really good question. There's a lot. Sepang,
Okay.
I think. It was good for racing.
Yeah.
Actually, it was fun to go to, but it was good for racing.
Yeah.
There's like a rumor about Malaysia now going around too.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. Maybe you know. No.
You want to give us an exclusive?
Sadly not. I'd love to. Everyone will come at me for not saying Kyle Army because I've been the second one, but I never got to go there. So, and I don't know how it'd be for racing.
Yeah.
If you could only have one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Japanese.
Nice. What's your favorite guilty pleasure TV show?
Ooh. Recently, The Traitors.
Okay.
Everyone keeps
yeah.
saying this show. I
Yeah.
need to watch it.
Yeah.
Just made us watch it. I was like,
Nice.
and by the end, I was like, this is great TV. Great TV.
What is it about? Quickly.
So it's kind of like the traitors are people that are within a group, much wider group, who don't know that there's traitors, like who the traitors
them.
are. Yeah,
Oh, it's like Among Us.
and they're trying to get. Yeah, they kill people off as it goes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But they all work together to get money or to make a prize pot.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, if there's any traitors left, they take all the money. If the faithful have managed to get rid of all the traitors, they split it between themselves. Whoever's left.
Oh, I'm watching that.
It's
That
really
is
good.
sick.
Yeah,
That is
that's awesome.
sick.
And you know who the traitors are, so you see how stuff plays out. It's really good about human interaction
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
people being like wary of each other and stuff.
Damn. Okay.
If you were trapped in an elevator with Fernando Alonso, what would you say to him? And he actually let's spice it up. He can tell you the truth about anything you want.
Yeah.
What question would you ask him?
Wow, what happened when you crashed the McLaren on your first test?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
that we hear about.
Still not certain on that one.
Yeah, that was different. Last question. You're writing an autobiography on your life. Which of these titles resonates with you the most? We got the Daredevil, the Dreamcatcher, the Free Spirit, or the Hardest Worker.
Sounds arrogant, but probably the hardest worker.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
get that a lot.
This is unbelievable.
That is actually the quickest. It was about like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Or
Get
something.
in.
Literally the quickest we've ever
Unbelievable.
had.
Yeah, Lawrence, mate. I'm
Damn.
sorry.
Yes. That's all I wanted it for.
Yeah.
None of those answers were legit or true. That was just to get through it quickly to beat Lawrence.
You would have just been like, yes, no, yes.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah,
so many
exactly.
answers in there,
Yeah, yeah.
but I couldn't say it.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on. Final question we ask every guest: what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh crikey! Just more fans of F1. Genuinely, like it's something that I steal a bit from Jess, but my job is to bring the sport closer to people if I can, and hopefully make people like it or understand it.
Yeah.
And if I can do that and help it grow a little bit, then it benefits me because the more fans there are, the more people need your work. So
Yeah.
it kind of is a self-fulfilling thing. But yeah, I'd like to hopefully leave more fans behind.
Brilliant. Guys, go and check out Chris's profile. We're going to link all of his socials, including definitely his Twitter. You definitely should follow him on Twitter. Henny, anything to say to our audience before we end off here?
Go follow it.
And merch, man. Come on.
Oh, yeah,
God,
the
we're not-
merch. The merch.
First thing I mentioned today when I showed up.
What was that?
Yeah, merch.
Pretty nice.
Merch. That's nice.
Windbreaker.
We gotta send one.
I know. We definitely have to send you some merch. That'd be pretty cool.
I'll take it.
Yep.
I'll take it.
Yep.
Thanks so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next episode.